going to introduce them, but I just want to say I'm excited about this panel simply because I met the last speaker at the previous conference that we had, the moderator on this panel. Okay, so I just want to highlight that we'll know who the moderator is in a minute as Lathera takes over.
Next, we have our panel for STEM, and STEM is for science, technology, engineer, and math. We are innovators. We are the ones who are behind the infrastructure that we are going to keep building and to fix in our countries. We are teachers. We are everything. We are discoverers. We discover cures. And right now, I'm going to introduce to you our panel for the STEM portion of this program. Coming up is Ms. Gail Madsen. Hold on. Dr. Sabrina Oliver. Dr. Diane E. Cabelli. And Dr. Corrinne Grham.
Here's my shameless plug, meet the doctors.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about this panel. We had an opportunity to get together on a conference call on Monday night and work up the questions. So we had some time to sort of noodle on the answers. So thank you all for participating. I think there's a biography for each one of us in the program that sort of gives us an idea about our careers and our education. But I think just for everyone else, if you haven't had a chance to look at the program, I'd like each one of us to describe our career and your current position. So let's start at the end and work our way back.
Oh my goodness, I thought I'd be the last one to go. Can you hear me? I speak very loud. I don't need the mic.
It's being recorded.
Stand up.
Hi everyone, welcome. I hope you're having an awesome time. Women empowerment starts with enlightenment, and I think so far all our speakers have done exactly that. Thank you for joining and supporting. My name is Dr. Corrinne Grham, and just a little bit about me. I'm a management consultant. I work with startup and small businesses. I do training in terms of personal and professional development, and I'm also a technology commercialization specialist and liaison with the University of the West Indies and Farmingdale State College and Stony Brook University.
Hi everyone, I'm very happy to be here. This is fascinating. I'm Dr. Diane Cabelli. I'm a scientist at Brookhaven National Laboratory. I've been there 37 years. I came as a postdoc and I rose through the ranks through assistant sci, associate sci, and I'm a scientist now. I do research, and about 22 years ago, I also started doing safety operations.
Good morning. Is it morning or afternoon? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Sabrina Oliver. I identify as a STEMinist. My background is largely technology education. I am also an adjunct professor with Farmingdale State College as well, but I also teach engineering for Eastern Suffolk BOCES. However, my main job is really my two STEM companies, and my goal is really simple, to really create opportunities for underserved, and the underserved in the STEM communities are women, but they're also minorities. And when I say minorities, I'm not just speaking about gender, I'm speaking also about abilities and more. So that's my drive. More than 20 years in education, also the military, a proud veteran of the U.S. Navy as a CB, if anybody knows CBs. So always technologies, yes. Thank you.
Gail Matson again here. I have over 40 years of experience in engineering and management of technical programs. After I received my BS in chemistry and biology, I started working on huge international design and construction projects that built power plants on industrial complexes around the world. And then I got my master's degree in environmental engineering and started working on design and construction of plants to comply with the new environmental laws. I transitioned then to cleaning up Superfund sites, those abandoned industrial sites that EPA was trying to clean up. And then in 1992, I started working as a contractor for the Department of Energy and started cleaning up radioactive waste and doing environmental remediation. Now I'm responsible for the operations at Brookhaven National Lab for the Environmental Safety and Health Directorate. So long career, very challenging, very interesting, very satisfying. So, Dr. Grham, how did you get interested in the STEM career?
Can you guess that I don't like the mic? So for me, I'm not a traditional, as you probably will gauge from the panel. I'm all business, but my experiences have been in probably over 25 industries, a lot in STEM and STEAM involved. And what I will say is, when I was growing up, I loved the sciences, but the science didn't love me back. Fast forward to now, I'm involved in a lot of projects that are STEM related. So that's how my involvement in STEM came about.
So, as I was growing up, I did numbers. Numbers were my friends. Numbers were always my friends. I loved numbers. I loved science. My father was a scientist. I have 3 brothers, and we were raised the same. We were all raised as if we were the same kind of people. We could do the same things. So it was just natural. I went into science. I will admit that my deep down in my heart love is art history. But I love numbers, and it's very, it just became a natural thing. So that's how I ended up staying in science, doing science for pretty much my whole career.
For me, my dad was in the Army, and it was very common to see females and males doing the same thing. It wasn't until public school did I learn that girls aren't supposed to do a thing or two. I remember my father actually having to fight to put me in an automotive program. I actually love transportation systems. I would say last week on my own, I just said, I've always wanted to study the U.S. highway systems. That's just kind of who I am, curiosity. In terms of technologies, I can't even explain why I love it. Because one, you're never smart in a sense where you know it all. It will always evolve. That's the one thing I love about technologies. So if anyone has ever been accused of ADD or ADHD, technologies is for you. And then the other thing that one of the things that brought me to STEM is that unlike in the core courses, say your English, your science, your math courses, in the technology courses, they concentrate on themes that are connected in those courses as well as across those courses. So for me, being the only girl that actually graduated from the high school that I went to, the automotive school, and then also going to Denver Automotive and Diesel College, what I've learned is understanding a system or any subsystem, just systems thinking. It led me to think in my adult life that, oh yeah, maybe I can be my own general contractor. Maybe, and I did that, and that was successful. And then also, maybe I can, this information technology thing, I'm interested, maybe I can do that too. Well, it's the same thing, my daughter was hit by a car, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can lead this team of surgeons, and neurosurgery, because the language and the themes are the same, the critical thinking, the problem solving, and it's just always been that way. It's a love of mine. Thank you.
I guess I have sort of a similar background. When I was a girl, I was curious about everything. And to the point that I started taking things apart to figure out how they worked. So I drove my family crazy. I took apart the toaster to figure out how the toaster worked. Then I took apart the vacuum cleaner to figure out how that worked. So I drove my family crazy. And then I was constantly asking why. Why? Why is this? How does this work? Why that? Why this? I pestered my parents for years about that. But I was very lucky. My mother has a degree, and she was in the medical field, and my father had a master's degree in engineering, so he was in engineering. They were very, very supportive of me early on going into a STEM career, because I know I had many friends that did not get that encouragement from their parents. So I was very, very lucky. So I think one of the things that we need to do as STEM professionals is make sure we get the message across to all the parents out there that a STEM career is worthwhile and very rewarding for their daughters. Okay. Let's start with Dr. Cabelli on the next question. What were some of the challenges you faced early on and then later in your career?
So I think my biggest challenge early on may not surprise many of you, the pitch of my voice. When I answered the phone, the assumption was that I was a secretary in the place. And so the pitch of my voice was the greatest barrier. I learned not to answer the phone. Occasionally I would say, I'm sorry, I'm not the secretary, can I send you to the secretary? But this was 1975, 1976 in Texas. The pitch of your voice really made a difference. So you just have to, you get beyond that. The later challenges were also associated with the pitch of my voice. I learned very rapidly in meetings that if I said something, it was sometimes mocked, it was mostly ignored. And then if a man stood up with a different pitch of his voice and said exactly the same thing, it was, what an interesting idea. And I'm sure many of you have heard that one too. And you sit there and you say, how do you deal with that? Well, your voice gets more aggressive and then you become sometimes the B word around people because your voice is more aggressive. But you just keep going. You just keep going and talking, and you keep going to meetings, and you keep going and saying things, and you get together. But within science, this is a very non-inclusive environment. It's very homogeneous. The other thing you see in science that's always a challenge is the optics. There's very little that you can look at as a role model because it's fairly monolithically white and male. And so you start saying, what are the optics, who do I emulate, what do I emulate, and you have to look very, very hard to try to find those role models. Those are probably the biggest challenges that I've had in terms of my career in general.
All right, so I think for me, I want to take a little different approach to it in terms of challenges, because most of my background is in business, and therefore it takes me in more consulting or training roles. And what I've seen actually before I address challenges is that more individuals, that optics, are looking to get more people involved, more women involved, and how they can do that, because it's a time for women again, and that's important. I think going to the challenge is saying that now we need to be able to get more of these done. It's usually funding or getting a message to understanding that STEM or STEAM is very impactful for business, for your growth, and for your success. It's not dirty. It is something that is very critical to where the economies are going. So the challenge, I think, is really more on a community level, and then in terms of corporate and social responsibility to get more people involved. Women are owning businesses in STEM, and that's how they're getting ahead, right? You can own your own business, you can create jobs by doing that.
I want to talk about two different challenges. Early on, something that I faced, and one of the speakers, or maybe both of them, talked about in terms of women not necessarily supporting women. You know, so early on, as a very young woman, the 20s. So I remember women were my biggest challenge. You know, the guys would test me, yes, but I could handle the guys because that's my personality. I speak men language. I don't do so well with female language, and the more, generally speaking, of course, the emotional kind of conversation. I'm the, okay, you got a problem, all right, let's get a solution and let's move on. We did that problem. You know, so sometimes women don't know how to receive other women who are different from them, and that's a problem. And also in that same realm, and as an automotive technician, I would have women to tell their daughters that that's not what you want to do. Well, you don't have to be, you don't have to be an automotive mechanic. There's, you know, any part of the vehicle can be monetized, can be a career. That's what I love about it. If you love fashion, I can show you the way into the automotive or transportation where there's a place for you. So that was one thing. But I allowed myself to stop letting someone else define who I should be as a female, you know, because we're not monolithic. You know, speaking of the optics. But I would say the greatest challenge right now in my fight to expose young people to STEM is, excuse me, I should say are the digital immigrants. Those are the ones who don't really understand what STEM is, and unfortunately those of us in STEM fields, we don't really make it so clear. And so they're constantly preparing young people for the 21st century, but we're in the 18th year in the 21st century, you know. So if you're getting young people prepared, you're behind. So you should be looking to the 22nd. So not really understanding the need and what there is out there. There's a major disconnect between schools and industries and businesses tend to not have the patience for the bureaucracy that schools are, and they don't know how to go there. So I meet many industry people, and they want to expose themselves. They're looking for it, but they don't know how to get in. And then the schools don't necessarily want to reach out or don't know how. So those are some of the challenges, and also the types of courses and the ways that we're continuing to teach young people as if we're still living in the industrial age. And not really knowing what technology is. Most think that you're talking about a computer, you know, and that, you know, just opening up our minds to having conversations, and the tables should be diverse. So that's a major challenge for me currently.
Thank you. So, like Diane, I started my career back in the 70s where we were wearing miniskirts. And my problem was my coworkers were more interested in making comments about my miniskirt than the design and engineering calculations I was doing for them. So it took me a while to overcome that. One of the things I thought was real interesting, I was sitting for a job interview, and there was about 5 guys and me. We were all applying for similar positions as engineering technicians. I was called out, and I was required to take a typing test because I was a woman, but the guys didn't have to take one. It was just amazing. So, and I passed the typing test, luckily, so I got the job. When I got out to the field, I worked on construction projects. I had to deal with the whistles and the sexual comments and so forth, but I just ignored them, and after a while the guys gave up because they couldn't get a response out of me. That was a big learning opportunity for me, and I shared that with a lot of women. Don't respond, they get tired and they get bored and they'll stop doing it, and they eventually do. So, in the middle of my career, my biggest challenge, I believe, was I kept getting passed over for opportunities. And it was just driving me crazy. I knew I was doing a better job. I knew the information. I was perfect for that project. Why was I getting passed over? So finally I went and challenged my boss and asked him why. And he goes, oh, we just assumed since you were married, you didn't want to travel or take a temporary assignment. And so I felt like I had to go home and get a permission slip from my husband so I could travel. It was crazy. So what I started doing is looking out for those projects, advocating for myself, but then also getting a lot of my coworkers to advocate for me so that I could get those positions. And once I got that assignment and did an excellent job, then it made it easier for the next assignment. But part of it was just advocating for myself and learning to speak up. It took a while for me to get there. Okay, let's start with you, Dr. Oliver. Please share with us some of the highlights of your STEM career. I think you've mentioned some, but you probably have other highlights you want to share.
I think what I'm most proud about is the exposure, the amount of people who have gained opportunities, the amount of people that I mentor. I'm constantly trying to mentor as many as possible. I'm very excited that I've been able to introduce myself to companies. And because usually still when I go to a conference, a STEM conference or an engineering conference, I'm either one of maybe 2 or 3 women, but then when I add Black to it, yes, even less, and so there's, that's bothersome, but what's more bothersome is when I'm at the diversity conferences, and the companies, they're there, and I'll go up to the companies and I say, so, do you have any, it's usually white males, and they're, they don't know, they want to, so that's great. So did you have anyone in the company that, kind of reflect what you're trying to achieve, so I'll go through the manual, I'm not gonna say the company. So I'm looking through the manual, I don't see me in there. I don't see anyone that kind of looks like me in there. And so you start the conversation and you say, can I help you with that? Can I show you this is the business side of me. Can I help you with that? Can I show you some, inexpensive ways to actually expose yourself, make yourself visible, and showing yourself, presenting yourself as if you're interested in diversity? Can I introduce you to a talent pool, where you can actually help cultivate a new group of individuals that you're trying to get into the company, and they've been open. So that's one of the highlights that I'm very, very excited about. Very excited about.
So, as a traditional scientist, one of the highlights that you always remember when you work in the lab is that aha moment when you solve the problem. And that, that's what keeps you going in the lab every day, is that aha moment. However, when you think about the totality, or I think about the totality of my career, I think about a couple of things, particularly with regards to women. And one is when I finished my doctorate, I went to NYU's Institute of Fine Arts. I'd written a fellowship, and I ended up teaching an advanced paper conservation lab, which was totally out of I had no idea about art conservation, and studying pigments in medieval Armenian gospel books, which was a real stretch for a nice Jewish girl. What I didn't know was Legion. And 2 of the students in the advanced paper conservation class published papers. For the first time in years, they had students that published papers. And it was very fulfilling to see students working on their masters, working with me on their projects, and they were able to publish papers in their field, and they were both women. And in the course of my career, I've had 4 high school students work in my labs, and I still remember the first one who said to me, I didn't know you could have a career in science and have a family. And I have 4 children. My partner and I have 4 children. 3 girls and a boy. They're all grown now. They range between 24 and 34. And you can have a career in science and have a family, and it can be fulfilling in both. And those are the moments that, when you think about your career, that you leave an impact that other people can see, that other people take home these messages. People publish papers and say, yes, I can. People see that you have a family and say, I can go out and do that myself too. That you become effectively the optics for them. And that leaves you with a very nice feeling. As nice as that aha moment for research.
So I have a couple of things I guess I want to share. I see St. Joe's College is here, and one of your professors, in terms of a business partner with a couple of projects that we have that involves Eastern Suffolk Bosu's in terms of workforce development, and with Stony Brook University as well. And those things are very exciting for me, and starting out actually as an entrepreneur, being able to help to commercialize technology. We have a fuel cell project that came out of Stony Brook University. We're working with the, we have a microgrid, and I think Dr. Brooke Ellis' program where she has that, keeping the lights on, Brookhaven National Lab, also with testing out at Suffolk Department of Public Works for a direct coupling system with lighting. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of things to be excited about. I think there are indeed challenges in where businesses now, we need funding to scale. We have the manufacturing ready, we have students or individuals who are looking to go back into the workforce to be able to do a lot of these things. So there's exciting things, but again, I'll go back to communities need to be able to come together and to help to push so that we can create those opportunities. So in terms of you with mentoring, when we're doing those things, we have something to give each person who's looking for work. There are opportunities there that are quite viable. And as I said, my list, I'm a technology transfer commercialization specialist, so that means I can take any idea you have. I'm one of a couple, from nuts, I guess, to bolts, that's how it goes. But I will need Diane, Sabrina, and Gail, Diane, Gail, Sabrina to be a part of the team and others, right? That's how it works.
I guess one of the highlights for me is helping to clean up the environment. Early in my career, I worked on construction projects and I saw what we were doing to the environment, working on different industrial complexes and so forth. So that's one reason I had the passion to go back and get my master's degree. So I've had the opportunity to work on a number of challenging Superfund sites to clean up the environment, and now working for the Department of Energy, cleaning up radioactive waste from nuclear bomb production. So to me, that's a real satisfaction. Now at Brookhaven National Lab, it's a real thrill for me to help support all the scientists that are leading the efforts, doing research and new discoveries, and make sure that they do it safely. So that's a challenge, and it's also a highlight. I really appreciate the opportunity. So I think we have to wrap it up now. We've had some really good discussion. We have some more questions here, but I think we'll be here for a while, and so if you want to come up and ask more questions during the break, I'm sure we'll all be very glad to answer questions about STEM careers. Thank you. Thank you very much.